So, hello, anyone who might be lurking in the chat or watching in the future to a late episode of Media Musings.
Howdy.
Sorry, I took 4 hours and it lasted longer than I anticipated.
Fair.
Yep, this is the late edition, obviously.
And hey, Seraphim. Yay,
Hey,
we
Sarah.
have one person in the chat. That's not us. But
I'm sure more will pop up.
So the last 3 weeks in regards to Media Musings have been somewhat of an interesting journey. See, we talked political theater through the lens of Biden's inauguration, and transitioned into the the propagandistic action flick Ip Man, which we are transitioning to Shanghai Noon in regards to East versus East meets West themology.
Yeah. And before that, all that, we did Die Hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But
this month's been a really long year, okay?
Yeah. So, and of course, special thank you to my patrons, Santi the Saint and GeoSam. And of course, we have GeoSam in the chat and Dog as well. So, Shanghai Noon is a satire movie of the Western genre.
Yeah.
Largely of the Western genre, you don't really see much satire. I didn't pick up on much kung fu genre satire.
I'd say there's arguably been satires of the Western genre before. Certainly spoofs of the Western genre before this.
Well, like for instance, Blazing Saddles.
But I'd even argue maybe he's just almost where I don't know if necessarily call it a satire, but like something that broke the stereotypes of the Western genre would be something like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
Mm.
And actually, you know what? Since you brought it up,
next week.
No, Ring had me a bet before the stream.
Shanghai Noon is
parody of Butch Cassidy.
No, I wouldn't say parody. I'd say it's an homage to Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
I'll say for the record, I watched Shanghai Noon for the first time a couple of days ago. Now I've not watched Shanghai Nights yet, so
yeah.
But yes, I did notice a little thing which I thought was a little homage to that. But I will say Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid could make a good future episode of this show, without a doubt. But
no, I'd say aside from the China stuff, because the whole plot of the movie is Jackie Chan, who is Chong Wang.
Chong Wang.
It's a really bad cowboy name, apparently.
It's a really bad cowboy name.
John Wayne is a really bad cowboy name.
Tags along with some of it, some of the more elite Imperial Guards to try and rescue the kidnapped princess.
Because his sense of honor won't let go.
Yeah.
And holy hell, that man's sense of honor is... He should have a blue card. He should get free parking spaces because of that thing.
As of that joke right now, could we say, is that a little homage in there to Back to the Future 3 by any chance?
Clint
Eastwood, what kind of stupid name is that?
It could be.
I think they used a lot of names because they had Chong Wang, obviously Roy's real name, which is revealed at the end.
Yeah, we'll get to
Clint
that.
Eastwood is mentioned. So I think they kind of just took the names of famous people associated with westerns and used them.
Well, no, the Clint Eastwood thing is from Back to the Future 3.
Yeah,
Marty McFly uses
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood as his moniker, so it could be a nod to that joke.
Yeah. And he said, like, what's my name? He was about to say Martin. He says, Clint Eastwood. What kind of stupid name is that? You know?
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, first of all, first broad impressions of this movie. We all seem to have taken quite a positive impression of it. Yay, nay?
Yeah.
On the whole,
for the most part. Yeah,
on the whole,
whole.
And I know Noodle will get to this. Some slight issues with the portrayals of Native Americans.
Yeah.
Of the Sioux Nation and the Sioux Nation and the Crow, which are the two tribes that are mentioned in this, that are problematic in retrospect.
But I think, especially considering it's a 20-year-old movie, it holds up pretty damn well in most areas. Yeah, and I think a lot of the things that are problematic about it can be taken as either elements of the satire or depictions of what it would have looked like. I mean, we don't like it. We don't like to hear the terms that they used for the indigenous peoples in the film. But do you really think cowboys were going around calling them the indigenous peoples? No, they were calling them Indians. So that's what the film uses. You know, it's the same argument with the whole thing everyone kicked off about DiCaprio using a particular word in a movie about slavery.
They're probably calling them a lot
worse.
A lot worse. I mean, a certain slur that begins with the letter V, for example.
So I think even the problematic elements of this film can be forgiven on the basis of it's satire or it's a depiction of what that world would have looked like.
Yeah.
I have to say, I was pleasantly surprised by the representation of women.
Yeah.
I was pleasantly surprised how well that held up.
I will say the depiction of Native Americans, while, problematic by our standards, is a lot better than what we got in Asterix and the Great Crossing.
I will say.
That's a low bar, though.
Yeah, it's a low.
No,
I mean,
that's a low bar.
I will point out, especially in the UK.
Yeah.
We basically, our depictions of indigenous peoples went from Pocahontas, the Disney movie, to that. And we didn't really see much, so that was a massive jump.
Yeah,
a massive positive step in the right direction for us.
I'll say it's slightly better than it. Like I'll say it's better than Hollywood's average, but not by much. I cannot talk right now.
But the thing is, it's a 20-year-old film, and it's better than Hollywood's average today, but not by much.
We'll say that.
I'm taking it as a whole. Like,
we will say this, and again, this is a very low bar, and I think even Asterix and the Great Crossing passes this particular bar. It's a better representation of native peoples than a certain shaman we can think of in recent news events, which I think even Asterix and the Great Crossing
shaman,
yes, beats that portrayal.
Sorry, I had to fill my mouth with something, or I'd have started and not stopped.
Yeah. So,
anyway, let's get into the nitty-gritty of this film. Starting off, it opens like a fairy tale. It opens like something like a Puccini opera or something.
Yeah.
It's got that really expansive fairy tale Eastern vibe to it that just it is more like Milan than
here's the thing. The structure of the movie matches its thesis statement.
East meets West.
No.
The sun doesn't rise here; it sets here.
Yeah, the movie starts in the east and ends in the west.
Yeah. This is the west, not the east. The sun doesn't rise here; it sets here.
Want
a translation? Princess stays.
Yeah.
Sorry, I remember this movie mostly by heart because I binged it for years.
I mean, this is the big. I suppose if there is a theme to this movie, is clash of cultures.
Yeah,
in a certain way, that's a big theme. I will say one thing on the princess thing. I'm glad they only did the joke once and it didn't become a recurring joke.
Pepe joke, yeah, the Pepe joke.
It didn't become Princess Pepe. That joke was made once, and I'm kind of glad it didn't become a recurring joke throughout that film.
I think what I like about that is what you see, and I actually really like the character of Roy. Because his character arc is fantastic. Everyone who talks about this movie talks about how Chong Wang goes from being, he will always be a slave to Prince. That's amazing. But what's even more amazing, you go from Roy, the outlaw, the thief, the brigand, the guy who's willing to put a gun to a woman's head for her wedding ring. But then you find out he's not actually a bad bloke. He tries his best, and he grows and he learns from his mistakes.
We're getting a little, ahead of ourselves. So it begins in, the Forbidden City in China.
Yeah.
And we do see some, some hints that Chun Wang isn't as culturally bound as his other compatriots, because he has, it's because he has a thing for the princess,
and I mean, who wouldn't? First of all, let's just put that out there.
Lucy Liu.
This is Lucy Liu.
It's Lucy Liu. Come on,
anyone.
Listen, I don't understand. I watched. Can you imagine being a bisexual teenager and watching that movie? Just don't know where to look.
But
to be honest, the age group I would have been at the time, and perhaps had I watched this back in the day, I don't want to go into details.
Yeah,
there might have been a few tissues used up on Lucy Liu back in that era.
Yeah, let's not get into details.
Yeah, but and here's another interesting thing. An interesting detail is she calls her suitor, her husband to be, a toad.
Yeah, and it's the fairy tale theme. I'm glad.
And her favorite book is The Princess and the Frog.
Yeah, but it's interesting because she turns him down, and I love the line from her that just sets the tone for her entire character, which is, if the emperor likes him so much, perhaps the emperor can marry him.
Yeah.
And as a young girl watching that, I was just like, yes, girl power, go for it.
Yeah, and
he was just,
perhaps, and so here's where we really get into one of the main themes of the movie, is how the West, i.e. the European descended cultures, interact with the East, i.e. the Oriental cultures, where Princess Pepe has been, influenced by the American diplomat into running away.
Yeah. And it's obviously, to everyone but her, it's a romance scam.
Yeah.
But she goes.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they're sent after her. You get the impression right from the very start that Chan's character, he tries to live up to this ideal of what an imperial guard is, but he's too much. He's got the ability to think for himself. We see him cleaning floors. Now, I don't care. That's a punishment. He's being punished for something doing that. That's a standard military punishment.
Well, you get
we
the
see
idea
him
from
late
this.
to formation, out of formation, uniform's not right. It's the little things that you're just like,
You get the idea that maybe he's, as an Imperial Guard, is a bit of a screw up or something.
Yeah.
Don't you? You know.
And the only reason he's allowed to go with is so he can carry his uncle's baggage, and his uncle's the translator.
Yeah. And it's very much, isn't the comments passed of, oh, maybe they'll kill him for us, maybe they'll get rid of him for us.
Yeah.
So, you know, he's not the guy you want at your back if you're going into a fight.
Yeah, he and which kind of matches with like Jackie Chan's general character for the most part is he plays the clown. He's the kung fu clown.
He did for a lot of years. He did made a change in the mid 2010s, I think, where he said he was worried about being typecast, so he started to take on more serious roles. And that is that's well documented.
I forget the film he did. I forget the name of the film now, but there was the thing he was in with Jet Li when they had the big fight scene. It was like which kind of almost had to be a draw between these two. Big and I mean,
Forbidden Kingdom.
Yeah, that's the one. Jackie Chan's is an interesting story because I think some of his early films where he was a sort of star of himself in China didn't get a lot of traction because it was like a lot of people trying to be Bruce Lee clones at the time. And Jackie Chan has often said that his two biggest influences on his film style are obviously Bruce Lee, but the other being Buster Keaton. He saw he came the first time he came to America, he saw some Buster Keaton movies and was enthralled by them and realized that there was a great there could be great slapstick got out of kung fu. There could be and he obviously very right on this, but I could see possibly why after a while it's like I want to be a bit more.
I want to do something serious. He's getting into his 50s, you know. He's not a young man either. I will say as well with Jackie Chan, he has that reputation of being a clown, but so many of his characters, even the clown characters, have that depth to them. So I think he's, because he said it himself that he plays the clown character, and I think that's been a little bit harsh on some of his stuff.
Well, like for instance, you know, Chon Wang
is
he's a screw up, but he is a very honorable, duty bound person. Yeah,
he's the lovable screw up. You know, he's doing his best in an impossible situation.
And you know, which brings us to where we meet Owen Wilson's character, Roy O'Bannon.
Yeah. Again, I mean, what you've actually got there is a couple. What you've got to get in this film, in a sense, is a couple of screw ups.
Yeah, and to me, this is a bit of a buddy cop movie.
It is very much the buddy cop thing. And you've got a couple of screw ups that, obviously, throughout the kind of course of this, kind of obviously get a little bit better, but learn from one another or whatever, and get better at what they're doing, and because Roy O'Bannon is a bit of a screw up as an outlaw, but maybe because he's kind of the honourable outlaw when they rob the train.
Yeah, like even the other guy grabs the woman's jewellery and he takes it off him and gives it back, and we see
starts flirting with her.
Yeah,
because he's trying to do the whole Jesse James. Hey, we don't rob from the poor people. You know, like he's doing the whole Robin Hood kind of like thing that the outlaw.
And we get our first stereotype joke in this robbery scene. Where'd you get the new guy? Oh, he's from Texas.
Yeah.
Which explains it all in a heartbeat. Especially to non-Americans, funnily enough. That joke does translate really well. Where'd you get the new guy? Oh, he's from Texas. What was it? He's crazier than a box of monkeys or something
Noodle,
like that.
Noodle, are you drinking beer at the moment?
I'm drinking cider.
Okay. We'll save it for a little later, but we got to do a drinking game in the stream.
Oh God, I can't do that drinking game sober.
Yeah.
I don't speak Chinese. I can't do that sober.
Yeah, the Texan kills John Wang's uncle.
Yes.
And Roy is immediately horrified.
He's horrified. He's pissed off by this.
Yeah.
His whole thing is, we'll commit this robbery, but no one's actually going to get hurt.
Yeah. You
Roy
lost your winging it privileges.
Yeah. I like that.
We're just going to, And this is Roy's thing. He wings it, but he does have his own code. Yeah. And he's that outlaw with a code. He's a thief with a heart of gold.
And so, and here's where we get our first structure, our first another bit of the East meets West, thesis of the movie, where we have John Wang, who is disciplined and honorable and rigid, and we have Roy O'Bannon, who wings it
and keeps up with him.
Yeah.
Which,
in their both ways, just the different as their approaches are, they've both got a sense of honor.
Yeah.
Which is maybe what they kind of, you could argue, which is maybe possibly the bonds.
Yeah, it is. It is what they've got in common, isn't it? It's when Roy hears, there's a woman whose life's in danger here. Yeah. And you're never quite sure if he's doing it for the princess or the girl or the gold or both or what.
Yeah.
But the fact that he hears there's a princess who's been kidnapped and he's like, I'm on this.
Yeah.
This is a guy who, in his heart of hearts, is a good person.
And obviously, get to the end of the movie, it is like, he puts honor above any, his honor and friendship above any personal gain, obviously, which is kind of a hero's journey.
And actually, this scene is where we get our first Butch and Sundance homage.
Mm-hmm.
Where the safe gets blown out of the
right,
brain.
Yeah.
Think you used enough dynamite there, Butch?
Which is it's fantastic little that's I don't have much to say on it being a Butch homage, except for that it is one. It's very well done. It's very funny, even if you don't get that it's an homage. Because I sure as hell didn't the first time I watched it at 8 years old.
I mean, as I said earlier, Butch and Sundance could be a Media Musings episode and done right easily.
Yeah.
Because it's such an awesome film.
And this is where we get our first fight scene. Fight scene.
I would call this more of a train tableau.
Yeah.
It's a set piece, isn't it? It's the classic Western set piece of the fight on the train.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's almost the same set piece that they have in spy movies or crime movies where they're running away from the cops on the train.
Yeah.
With Chom playing the part of the cop.
Yeah.
Which is obviously beautiful foreshadowing for the end of the movie.
Yes.
I'm sure the train thing, it's been sort of almost been done in a couple of James Bond films I can think of.
Yeah. Isn't there a James Bond movie where they get on top of the train and he has to fight? I'm sure that's a Daniel Craig one. It was even done kind of in the Matrix on the highway. You could argue.
Done by Daniel Craig, but if you go back for obviously how many train fights were there in James Bond films? From Russia with Love, Live and Let Die, Octopussy would be the big train fight.
Yeah, so it is kind of like they've got a list of action movie set pieces we must fit into this movie.
Well, and it's a Western. You've got to have a train robbery scene.
Yeah. So it's nice that they brought the two together in that way.
Yeah.
I do like the whole thing with the way the Texan turns on him, because the Texan, we are very much encouraged to believe that the Texan's just a few screws loose.
Yeah.
And then we realise it takes a smart man to play the fool.
He's usurping Roy.
Yeah.
And that was the plan all along.
But, I mean, almost. I mean, again, not. I don't just say homage to Butch and Sundance, but there's a kind of obviously the scene in that where the guy challenges Butch for the leadership. You know.
Yeah. Reach for the sky, O'Bannon. It's my gang now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the whole thing with the logs is just a fantastic little comedy piece there with Jackie Chan and Owen Wilson. Those two work really well together. They've done other things since, and they do work really well together.
They are a great comedy duo. They really
I do have to say, okay, bless him. I don't know who Owen Wilson pissed off in the film industry, but I don't know how he's gone from Shanghai Noon to advertising sofas.
Yeah.
But, mate, no.
Yeah.
I know he's got to pay the bills, but no.
He's done he's done some very good things. Owen Wilson's very good when he's got someone like a Jackie Chan to play off. I mean, like even the movie I Spy, where he and Eddie Murphy played off each other.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson was quite good.
Yeah.
Well, and I mean, in Night at the Museum, he's playing off Ben Stiller and the guy who plays the Roman.
Yeah.
I do feel, it's just my opinion of Owen Wilson, but he's really good, but he needs that person to play off of, which to give it.
Owen Wilson for me, I think, with
I don't know that he can hold a movie by himself in that respect.
Yeah, no. With all respect to the guy, because I do love him, he needs to be part of a double act, but he needs to be part of the right double act. Because I saw him in Wedding Crashes, and that I didn't rate it.
Yeah.
Because the guy he was playing the double act with was just a shade too dim. The character he was playing the double act off against, and it just didn't work.
I mean, generally, I think in some ways, Owen Wilson is kind of, a lot of the times, he's kind of the straight man in the situation.
He is.
Respects.
I will say, though, Owen Wilson definitely missed his calling as just a straight drama actor. As much as I love him as a comedian, I bawled at Marley and Me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That was a fantastic role for him, and he really played that role really well.
So, we leave the train and cut to Owen Wilson being serviced by prostitutes.
So now we know he's a bit of a...
Or in his own mind is being serviced.
Yeah.
And it turns out that no, he's just hallucinating it or dreaming it as he's buried to his head in the sand and having vultures pick at his ear.
Yeah, my gang left me to die. They buried me and left me to die. Yeah,
I got to admit, I might be able to skip him. I do love the fact that Jackie Chan gives him the little tools to dig himself out with.
Yeah.
He
gives him chopsticks.
Yeah.
I kept my end of the bargain. Now you keep yours. Puts it in his mouth. Dig.
Yeah.
To be fair though, he didn't. And to be fair to Owen Wilson, he didn't give Jackie Chan wrong directions. He just gave him bad directions.
Yeah, he didn't give him bad directions. He gave him wrong directions.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. Jackie Chan still made it to Carson City. It just took him a while. Therefore, the directions were bad, but they weren't wrong. He didn't ask for the quickest way to Carson City. He just asked for the way to Carson City.
Yeah. So
it's not Owen Wilson's fault. He said over the mountains, and Jackie Chan didn't go, oh, I wonder if there's a road that goes around them. That's not his fault.
Yeah. But of course, Chun Wang has to get to Carson City because that's where the princess is being held hostage.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason it's done that way as well is because Chun Wang has to have his hero's journey.
Yeah.
And it is definitely part of his hero's journey to take that long, arduous journey alone.
Yeah.
And I guess this point in the movie is where we get into the problematic bit, I think.
Yeah, where he runs into the indigenous people.
Yes.
I am actively trying to say indigenous people, as I've been told now that native is not appropriate.
Yeah.
But if I slip up, I apologise.
I didn't even know that was like the now because I was using the term.
Yeah, I was told this about a week ago, and I was like, oh.
Though I will say, you know, if this were made even like a decade earlier, the person Chan would be saving would probably have been white.
Yeah. Which is, it is nice that they've taken the elements of what is essentially a Chinese story and kept it Chinese.
Yeah.
They kept that, and they've leaned into it rather than backing away from it.
Yeah.
I mean,
because as a comedy, they had the freedom to do that I think other genres might not have.
I mean, I think according to the official lore of this, that it he saves a Sioux boy from the Crow.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm talking about the overall story of him saving the princess.
Yeah.
But yeah, he saves a Sioux boy from the Crow and sticks his oar into local relations. Please don't do that if you're ever traveling anywhere. It never ends well.
Yeah.
And ends up married to what we are left to presume is the chief's daughter.
Yeah.
And that whole montage of him meeting them, sitting around the fire, getting stoned with them, marrying the daughter, sleeping with her in the teepee, and then that's all very problematic. But it could be a lot worse.
And I will say,
they try and communicate.
I do like the miscommunication jokes are kind of funny.
Yeah. But they're only funny because he's not white.
That will shut him up, you know.
And it had a kind of Dances with Wolves vibe, that little bit of the film.
Though, I also like the ending joke at the end for that montage. You know, cheer up, at least he's not a white guy.
Yeah. The joke that cheer up, at least he's not a white guy.
Yeah.
And that just gave me such flashbacks to These White Men Are Dangerous.
Yeah.
From Disney. Which I was probably watching it around the same time I first saw this film. But yes, it's problematic, but it's done in a way, it's very affectionate.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not an Indigenous person, so I can't speak for what they would think of it. But to me, it looks very affectionate, and it's quite clear that they're given the power in that situation to joke about outsiders who don't know what they're talking about, or don't know what they're doing, or just shut them up with a peace pipe. Yeah. Well,
and the thing is, you know, in a typical American Western, instead of a Sioux boy being chased by the Crow, it would have been a white girl.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would have been a gunfight instead of a comedic chase / kung fu fight.
With the axes
If it's an Indigenous person getting saved, it's getting saved by a white. Like the Dances and Wolves thing. It's like,
and the thing is as well with the idea of him not being white in those westerns, the white guy marries into the tribe and saves the tribe somehow.
Yeah.
That's not what happens here. He's still the buffoon, and they have to keep him alive.
Yeah,
which is a nice role reversal as well.
And, you know what? Okay,
I enjoyed that power shift.
You know what? For a film that blatantly fails the Bechdel test.
Yeah, blatantly, because none of the women speak English or speak each other's languages.
Blatantly fails the Bechdel test. It's got some of the most empowered female characters of any movie I've seen. Like, for instance, Chon Wang's wife is probably the most competent person in the movie.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, how many times does she bail the pair of them out of trouble in this movie?
Do you notice, though? Do you notice she saves them the first time in the prison, which we'll get to. We'll get there. But then after she's seen him go into the town for the first time, once he's met up with Roy, all of her attempts to save them always focus on Roy.
Yeah.
So it's no surprise at the end that they end up together.
Do you know the name of the character, by the way?
I don't know.
Falling Leaves is the name of the character. That's the name of her.
Fallen Leaves.
Falling Leaves is the name of the
it's nice.
character. Yeah.
So,
I don't know if it's accurate or anything, but it's nice.
So, I will say,
so on Wikipedia, it has
while
to be
it is,
accurate.
while it is slightly, while it is a bit problematic that, Chan Wang gets a name.
Okay, let's just take it as read that if we say the word Indian in this stream, it's because that's what the movie said, and we're not condoning using that term for Indigenous peoples right now.
But gets the tribe name. It is kind of funny that the tribe name is Man Who Fights in a Dress.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man Who Fights in a Dress. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what it looks like, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which is just great.
But this kind of gets into something else that Shanghai Noon does well. Like it's, and I do not usually condone making race jokes.
It does its race jokes really well.
But if you're gonna make race jokes, Shanghai Noon is how you make race jokes.
Yeah, because you can't have an East versus West Chinese, indigenous white cowboy film and not have a commentary on race.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's always the white people who are the butt of the joke in those jokes.
No, during the montage, Chan is the butt of the joke.
It's always in whatever situation they're in when they're making the race joke always punches up.
Yes.
So if it's a race joke between Indigenous and a cowboy, it's going to be the cowboy who's the butt of the joke.
Yeah.
Or Indigenous and the Chinese, it's the Chinese who's the butt of the joke. But when it's Chinese and cowboys, it's the cowboy who's the butt. It always punches up. It never punches down, and that's a very nice thing to see.
For instance, it's about this part of the movie where it cuts away to the best race joke I've ever seen put to film, where the other guards are standing in this random, standing on the prairie, doing their morning Tai Chi, and you got this redneck, settler and his wife. The wife's like, "Those are funny looking Injuns." And the husband turns to the wife and he says, "No, those aren't Injuns. Those are Jews."
It's just fantastic because it just shows the complete ignorance of the white people in that moment. And you're supposed to take it that way. You're supposed to laugh at them and go, "How could you possibly think they were Jewish?"
Yeah. And it gets a callback to it when the guards arrive in Carson City, because Jedediah says shalom to them as they depart.
And again, is this guy right in the head? He's that comedic, and if you're going to do a race joke, that's how you do it. And he is. Hang on. Let me see. Also, just FYI, you can get the DVD for like £4. I bought the DVD because my old version didn't work when I put it in the player. But it was, don't bother with buying it on the popular Rainforest streaming service where it's £9. There's no point. Buy it on DVD.
Though apparently on the American version, if you have Rainforest Prime, you can watch it for free.
Okay. Tell you what, let me see if I can. Keep talking.
But So, with the help of his highly competent wife and, his rather stubborn and willful horse, Chan makes his way to a settlement, which is not Carson City.
No, it's not.
And of course, this is where we get into he enters a bar.
Yeah. Oh wait, no, we skipped the bit with the princess.
Oh, okay.
Where we are first introduced to our villain.
Well, to our Chinese villain. Because there are 3 antagonists. Fan Lang or Lon Fang, forget which it was. Who is basically Chan Wang's foil, in that Chan Wang is, a very rigid, disciplined person who is influenced by the free spirit of America to loosen up, to learn to take himself less seriously. Meanwhile, Lon Fang is influenced by the West and becomes a business tycoon. He is the evil railroad man in this Western.
He is, and he's the character who bleeds malice.
Yeah.
He is the big bad. I know we've got the sheriff and we've got the guy who brought her over initially.
Yeah.
But Long Fang is the main antagonist. And again, it's that turning it on its head of the Chinese people in this story are driving the story. They are not the victims of it. This is a fundamentally Chinese plot.
Okay. Hold on. I need to check something.
What, the name of the character?
No. A date. I need to check a date. Okay. Let's see. Okay, yeah. Okay, definitely. Okay.
What?
So, the American ambassador brings Pei Pei to Long Fang. I'm pretty sure it's Long Fang.
Mm-hmm.
And tries to, intimidate more money out of him.
And he gets his ass handed to him.
Well, he gets...
It's Lo Fang.
Lo Fang. So Lo Fang takes an oyster and sticks the shell in the diplomat's neck and says, the Chinese do not
renegotiate.
Yeah.
That's a great historical comment.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So, the movie takes place in 1880, which is 20 years after the Opium Wars ended.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So there's an entire history behind that one little joke.
Yeah.
We haven't got to the other villain of the story yet, have we?
We're talking about Lo Fang now.
Okay.
Yeah, we haven't gotten to the Marshal yet, though.
Yeah.
No, we haven't got to him yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a very, very obvious Western reference there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But so
one thing I do want to talk about this Lo Fang scene. When we're first introduced to him with the princess, he brings her food and she quite pointedly declines it by throwing the tray across the room.
Yeah.
He's very malicious. He lays hands on her once and she stands up and walks away. And then he tries again and she, to put it lightly, gives him a bit of a kicking.
Yeah.
And she does not go down without a fight. And she, it's very pointed what he's trying to do there.
Yeah.
But when she fights back, it's then and only then that he sends her out amongst the people.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the use of the fallen woman trope, but lampshaded, because she fights back and she defends herself.
So, and you do get the sense that this isn't really it's not about the money. It's about the fact that the money is the Emperor's gold.
It's a personal with the Emperor.
Yeah.
It's nothing to. I think the money is irrelevant. This guy just wants to hurt the Emperor.
Yeah,
he could have made his money in any other way.
Yeah. It's
how do you hurt the Emperor in the pocket? Let's take his daughter and let's take his money.
Well, it's either revenge or a power play.
A little bit of both, I would say.
Yeah.
Because to me, I get the impression, although I don't think it's stated outright in the film, that Lo Fang was kicked out of the Imperial Guard.
Oh no, it's. I don't think it's stated outright, but it is very heavily implied,
especially with the haircut and everything else.
No, it is. It is state like Chan Wang calls him a traitor.
Yeah.
And Lo Fang, addresses Chan Wang as an old compatriot.
Yeah, as they used to fight together. They would. So there is obviously a history there.
Yeah.
And the history, you do get the impression, is more important than the gold.
Yeah.
Mm.
But
just wanted to point that out.
So back to the obligatory tavern scene.
Yeah. You can't have a Western without a good saloon fight, can you?
A good saloon fight, and it's got all the elements. It's got a poker game going on at the start.
Mm-hmm.
Beer bottles everywhere.
They mistake Chan for an Indian.
Yeah,
and he's got the face. He doesn't even realize they painted him.
Yeah, and he's not realized they've painted him. But just before you get to that, there is the beautiful scene with him with his wife.
Yeah.
Where they're on the hilltop just as he's walking into town. And he turns back to it. Now, if you look at it, as he was walking along, because you have to have your long, wide shot of man in the thing, he's walking along and she's leading the two horses, and he stops and go away.
Yeah.
But then when he gets to the hillside, he turns and looks at her, and that's where she says, "I see you."
Yeah.
And it becomes this moment of they've reached an understanding quite clearly.
Yeah.
Like he's asking her, "Are you coming or not?" And she's like, "You go."
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. If you want to write a love story between two people who don't speak each other's languages, it's a beautiful way of doing it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say a love story because of the way the movie ends.
No,
but a very
I was going to
deep
say.
Friendship.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's definitely a very deep respect there, and then because obviously it's kind of funny because then you go on to you get to the scene where they're hiding out and they start training one another in their own different sort of skills.
Which that scene is
hilarious.
That scene is also an homage to Butch and Sundance.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, the tavern scene. Now, if you'd like, I do. If we want to watch a little bit of it, I do have it on my other screen.
Oh. Okay.
Like just a little clip to show it.
Your channel ring, so.
If you want to do it, let me just.
Yeah.
You'd probably be all right, honestly, but.
He actually, because he walks into the tavern and says hello by saying how.
Yeah.
How. He's thinking that's an American greeting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. I am watching it in VLC because it's a DVD in my computer. So, bear with me. Hang on. No,
here we go.
Not yet.
Here we go.
Not yet. No audio share because I'm an idiot. I always do that.
And it's got probably one of the best backing songs for a saloon fight.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So.
Oh yes, I remember this. Does it have Lagrange?
It just yeah.
Which I love. That I can't hear a thing on him.
And
until Chuck Norris, probably pretty much, but nobody put. But Jackie Chan, he does get thrown about. He does get punched and knocked about a bit, and which I think in a sort of way sort of adds to Jackie Chan a little bit.
Yeah, because it humanizes him a bit, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And then of course we go. You get the running gag with the sheriff's deputy getting the roof on his hat. And then we cut to the prison scene.
Yes.
Another one that is absolutely, it goes down in history for verbal sparring.
Yeah.
Yes.
And while they're arguing about how to this figure out how to break out, you see shots of someone tying the wall to a herd of cattle
and getting ready to take a shot. And there's this great moment of just give him the damn book back, first of all. Give him the book back. And then they're discussing how to escape, and there's two great lines from Owen Wilson here. The first one is, he says, "Why don't I pretend to be sick, and then when they come in, you attack the guard?" And Owen Wilson goes, "You mean the sick prisoner routine? Does that still work in China? Because here it's kind of been done to death." It's been done to the noose. Which is a great line. You've got that one, and then just the whole thing where he's like, "I'll figure my stuff out of here. You go play over there." He's very.
And then Sean figures out that some of the bars are looser than the others, and wet shirts don't break.
He says, and Roy's like, "Okay," so off he goes with his stick, and he says. And Roy doesn't believe it. Roy's saying, no, so what? And you bend the bars, and this can't possibly work. And then you get the famous ominous creak. And Chong Wan turns to him and he says, "See, I told you so." And Roy says, "Nah, you said wet shirt don't break, not piss shirt bend bar." And that is the line of the movie.
Oh, that is a fantastic line.
But and it's also where we get our first line of, the sun may rise where you come from, but it sets here.
It's here.
And this is where you start to see them grow, both of them growing and changing. Which is, it's interesting. Because this is, it's the first time we see someone outright tell Chon, "Have a look at yourself, lad." And he figures it out. They get that. But the one thing I want to comment on in this prison scene as well is the physical behavior of the characters. It's very rare in movies to see two guys, especially two guys who are supposed to be this big macho, cowboy and soldier, basically, being so physically almost affectionate with each other. Like, he gives him a massage to help him pee, like, not your hand. It's very, but it never. It's more how you're. I've observed this in different films. American films, the men are very must not touch. If I touch, I am gay, therefore must not touch. European films are very hugs for all, free hugs. Come and have a hug. But they are more of the European style. And they are very, they don't. There's never any awkwardness there. You know me. I am uber fan person. I will slash any two characters together if you give me enough time.
Yeah.
I have never got slash vibes from this film.
Yeah.
And I think it's because the characters, that friendship that they have, to read a romance into it would almost cheapen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could. It's honestly, you probably couldn't really do a fan fiction about these two in that sense.
I mean, you probably could, and someone probably has.
Yeah.
But, you know, I do think to an
You
extent.
personally, it's yeah.
But so, you know, Chong's wife, you know, breaks them out of prison because she is the most competent character in the film.
By a long
without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they make their way to Carson City.
They stop on the trail first, don't they?
Yeah.
Sean's trying to.
Well, they do the training thing, don't they? You know, and
the thing with the saddle.
Yeah.
And the thing that I love throughout this is the one, and I know it becomes a big gag obviously towards the end of the film, is the fact that he's teaching them how to be a cowboy, like a Western gunslinger, and Owen Wilson's character can't shoot for shit.
Yeah.
Shoot for
Yeah.
And, even with his own guns, he's not a great shot.
He's a terrible shot.
Yeah.
Which obviously becomes a bit of a thing towards the end, you know. But
yeah. But I do like this. He's very good with animals. He's clearly very good with the horses. The whole thing with the horse taking the saddle off repeatedly was just. We've all done it when there's something you know how to do and you're watching someone try and figure it out and you just I can't watch anymore.
Yeah.
And
you know, at this moment, you're not sure if Roy's, you know, in it for, you know, if Roy just wants to be in it for the gold or if he wants, you know, Sean on his side to take his gang back or what.
Yeah.
I think you get the impression at this point that maybe Roy's in it for the money, possibly.
Yeah.
But it's not really stated as such.
Yeah. And I think at this point, it's more that Roy's just a bit lonely and he knows he can't survive, so he's latched onto someone.
Yeah. Which is funny because he's always calling Sean a greenhorn and telling him that he won't survive alone out here.
Yeah, no, he's very good at talking himself up, isn't he? As he says, the only thing he's good at.
And obviously that gets to a certain point, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit later, but the whole, he's not really my friend, you know, like, because it's the whole, why are you riding with this quote-unquote Chinaman kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so this maybe because the sort of racist, and obviously does play into something that was really happened in the West with a lot of Chinese immigrants that came there and worked on like their railways or the mines or whatever. There was seriously racism, and it was the whole Chinaman, you know, thing.
Yeah.
And the thing is as well with that, I think
also interesting how to dial back to to earlier in the film when Lo Fang is being introduced, the diplomat describes him as giving Chinese people a start in the country.
Yeah, helps them get their feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And the thing with Roy,
which is sadly, again, that's almost a sad commentary on real life with certain, should we say, Chinese organized crime groups that do indulge in human trafficking, that lure people over with we'll give you a new start in the United States sort of thing.
Listen, the Romanians are doing it. The Italians did it. The Irish did it.
Oh, they've all done it. It's organized
not a national specific thing. It's a gang.
No, criminal gangs have always done it. But let's just say, some of the Chinese tongs that have got a quite famous reputation for it.
But and that's partially why I say this is an immigration story.
Yeah.
Because the main villain Lo Fang is not only the stereotypical evil railroad man that a Western needs, but he's also blatantly exploiting immigrants.
He's human trafficking is effectively what he's doing. Yeah.
But this is the thing that I wanted to comment on Roy saying, "Oh, he's not my friend."
Yeah.
That's what I like about this film. It doesn't shy away from the race commentary.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It knows how to make humor out of it, but it also doesn't shy away from the very real issues.
Yeah.
And Ring, you know as well as I do.
Yeah.
Even now in the US, interracial friendships, interracial relationships do get a lot of scrutiny.
Yeah.
I mean, we got it.
Yeah.
And that was in the last 10 years.
And you'll get that thing where you might be willing to say, "Oh, they're not really my friends" or whatever, just to get someone off your back.
Yeah. And this is where we see, this is what we mean by there's this whole conversation with Roy and Chong about honor.
Yeah.
And we kind of see that Roy wants to have honor, but he's a coward at this point in the film. And the thing about Roy is, I think what makes Roy lovable in that situation is that he really is that naive.
Yeah.
And we do see in the final gunfight as well. He's very naive.
Yeah, it's very much the the trope of the person who needs to loosen up, paired with the person who needs a backbone.
Yeah. And they kind of swap out bits until they make two functioning human beings.
Yeah.
Although, of course, given the ending, and another homage to Sundance.
Well,
So
So
it's also say with the whole gunfighter who's a coward kind of thing. Well, I don't even necessarily know if it's a fair comparison, but if you ever think of the Magnificent Seven and Robert Vaughan's character, but I don't even necessarily even think that in that film that Robert Vaughan's character is necessarily a coward more than someone who's got like PTSD or something from his previous.
I mean, the thing is with Roy, he's a coward, but he's only a coward when it comes to certain social situations.
Yeah.
Because if he really was a coward, there's a dueling scene later on, and we know he's bricking it because we can hear his internal monologue. But he stands and he faces it. Well,
maybe this is. I think we're kind of about to get there, aren't we? When we're introduced.
They get to Carson City, and Roy finds out that he's got a wanted poster, and that means he's made it as an outlaw. And then it turns out that Sean, aka the Shanghai Kid,
which is a fucking awesome. I have to admit, it's like when he said this. That was so funny when he found out the Shanghai Kid is worth more than he is. Like, that was.
But I also love the joke. It's like, but I'm not from Shanghai.
And again, that's a joke that's going to appeal to people who aren't white.
Yeah.
Because we've all had it of where are you from? And then people how many times in America did people say to me, Ray, how far away are you from London then?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like,
if I go to America again and I have any more Yanks ask me if I know the Queen.
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Or the thing some Americans like to do is They think Europe is a country.
Yeah.
I
mean, it's
one,
kind of going down that road, but
the other one,
that's
I got to
for
say,
a different screen.
I got this 5 or 6 times when I was in Kentucky, and I honestly went out there thinking this was just an Only Fools and Horses joke until I realised this was real life. Y'all from Australia?
Yeah.
And
because there is a stereotype that actually exists in America of that the English person's got to speak. Oh yeah, we speak the Queen's English.
Yes, and if we don't speak the Queen's English, we must be Australians.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how much that stereotype exists today, but certainly
Cheryl
the last time I went to America, it did.
Deal with her accent. It still exists.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he was in Kentucky.
Yeah, let's be honest. I was not going to the most progressive part of the United States. Let's be clear about this.
So, but we also, get introduced to the secondary villain, which is a foil for Roy.
Yeah.
In the Marshal.
The Marshal.
U.S. Very, very, very obvious Western reference there.
Yeah.
Very. What's the Marshal's name again?
I don't remember.
Van Cleef.
Van Cleef.
Yeah.
Anyone who's seen any of like the spaghetti westerns of Clint Eastwood, who was the main actor alongside it, either as a foil or whatever alongside him, was Lee Van Cleef.
Ah, okay.
Who looked obviously very similar with the mustache and the hair.
Yeah.
And even if you go on a little later in some of Clint Eastwood's films, like Pale Rider, the antagonist Marshall Stockbridge kind of looks a little like the Lee Van Cleef. It's very, very obvious. Like if you've ever watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, obviously, Lee Van Cleef is the antagonist in that film.
And it's a very, very similar look, and it's obviously deliberate.
Yeah.
Right down to the style of hat and the dress, even his chain. It's just very, very,
It's a homage. It's an homage to spaghetti westerns, I suppose.
Yeah,
it really is. Yeah.
And as I said, even in some films that beyond that, like if you've ever seen the film Pale Rider, the villain in that, Marshall Stockbridge, looks a little. It's got that kind of similar look, even though it's not Lee Van Cleef playing the character. It's got that look.
So, so they hide in an apothecary shop and have an argument.
Look at that! Look at that poster. What does that say? Drives girls crazy. Drives girls crazy. Drives the posse crazy. Makes them want to hang you.
Yeah.
And he's like, but I'm not an outlaw. And it's like, dude.
Yeah.
Because he can't conceive of the fact that he's a criminal.
Yeah.
Or he's viewed as one.
Yeah. And so he throws Roy out the window to the sheriff.
I love that. Just fight with honor, you'll be fine. It's like,
dude.
And he just kind of, like, poor Roy knows he's out of his depth in this fight.
Yeah, and poor Roy desperate enough to take the advice straight.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I'd say the better. I'd say Shanghai Noon does Blazing Saddles better than Blazing Saddles. But and so we have two simultaneous fight scenes. One's your stereotypical Western duel. And then we have in the back, we have Sean Wang, beating up the posse.
With a horseshoe.
Yeah, and a rope.
It's very Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
It's funny. It is funny to watch. And again, like you said, Jeff, he takes his hits.
Yeah.
And this is the beauty about Jackie Chan. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He's known for joking about like his own nose, like he thinks his nose is big, or his atrocious grasp of the English language on sets.
Yeah.
But he's actually very, very, very intelligent and speaks English very well, but plays it up in films.
Yeah. And like I said earlier,
seriously, and I think that's his main USP as a Eastern sort of martial artist.
Yeah, well, that's what I said. Like where some of the difference between, say, I said this earlier about Jackie Chan and perhaps some other Chinese martial arts stars, whether it be obviously Bruce Lee, but maybe even like Jet Li and so on. That they are portrayed to be like superhuman. No one touches them.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan is not quite like that. He will get punched about. He will get thrown about for he will allow certain parts of a fight scene where he gets physically dominated by his opponents.
Yeah.
And even made to look the fool.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, makes, in a way, that's great because it only makes that comeback when he does beat them even more better.
Yeah, it does. And he's the everyman. In any given fight scene, Jackie Chan is the everyman. He's the person who, you kind of look at him and think, you're rooting for him because he's taking the hits.
It's that I can't remember who said it. It's a phrase I heard one time, but it was without a dragon for St. George to slay, St. George becomes redundant. It's that whole
And Jackie Chan, again, I love how all of his fight scenes in all of his films are very visually entertaining.
Yeah.
It's very easy to make a fight scene look really bad. Like, the fight scenes, you would think you can't film a boring fight scene. You really can. Jackie Chan does the opposite. Jackie Chan's fight scenes are never boring. And there's always something new going on. And it's the same 8 or 9 basic set-piece moves of throwing something at that guy, falling over this, spinning around, doing that. Yeah. But they're all on a different backing. They're always, they're just fun.
Yeah.
And one thing I got to say, and one thing I got to say about Jackie Chan, what I think often gets so overlooked in his fight scenes, and partly because of his comedy, is his facial expressions.
Expressions are fantastic.
His facial expressions are so brilliant, and it often gets overlooked. Because people talk about all the cool martial arts and stuff. It is that look again. So the fact that Buster Keaton was such a big influence on him. That those facials of his are fantastic for he totally gets slapstick comedy. You know?
Well, and so here's the thing. Another great thing about how Shanghai Noon handles its East meets West thesis is it is a very symmetrical movie. So, we have Roy and the Marshal doing their duel, and
paralleled with
but at the last minute, Sean throws the sheriff's badge like a shuriken.
Yeah.
And sticks it, sticks in the hand.
Mm.
Yeah. And then as they're riding away, you've got I had him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas we know, because we've heard the internal monologue of, you're gonna die.
We know that I'm gonna die if I have a quick draw with this guy,
But,
it's like I'm screwed.
Later in the movie, when Chun Wang goes into the railroad camp and faces off. Yeah, it gets flipped.
That happens a lot in this movie. Like Chun Wang does something and then Roy does it later, or Roy does something and Chun Wang does it later.
Yeah.
Always done with a smirk of a knowing of this is deliberate.
Yeah.
Like even down to the line with Roy right near the end of, oh, is that all you think about's the goal?
Yeah.
Just realised the part of the movie we're getting to now, right? So they take refuge.
Yep.
Yeah.
In a brothel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, if you think about it, is very clever.
And of course, and so back in the 1800s in the West, brothels were really the centerpiece of a community.
Yeah.
Oh, crikey,
actually, it's probably why Western states were the first states to elect females, women as representatives and politicians, is because in those communities the women already had a lot of power because they were the madams. The madams.
Yeah. And I only brought this up because I wanted
a Dolly Parton movie called The Best Little Whorehouse in Texas.
Yeah.
Great.
I only brought this up because Noodle, you're drinking, I'm drinking. Can we do it? Can we do this?
Every country has a drinking game.
Yeah, every country has a drinking game.
Every country has a drinking game.
Yeah.
I'll just say, if you and I do this, we'll try and do this as a part of the scene when we'll try and do it as the part of the scene where they've done it on their 10th one.
They go through in that montage? We would die.
Yeah. I think this, because we can't speak Chinese, we should just probably treat it as if it's the 10th beer and we're not making sense anymore.
Would you like to watch that scene? I can find that scene if you'd like.
Yeah, let's go on. Go on, Noodle.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just.
We might be playing a drinking game in a second. We don't know.
Come on. Open. Let's see. Because I've nearly run out of my beer now, so that's why I've just popped a shot.
This is why we
Yeah.
The bath scene, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, you should type in Shanghai Noon drinking game. You got about a minute-long clip.
Yeah, no, I've got it here. I'm
ready
to play from the DVD.
Okay. Yeah.
Share screen. Turn the volume up.
Yeah.
And play.
But
so
yeah,
that's the drinking. And this, do you know how I was talking about like there's two different styles?
Yeah.
You've got American men and European men, and it is that. Can you imagine two American guys in side by side baths in any other movie?
Yeah, no,
probably not.
But I just
and this is where we get at near the end of this scene, this is where we get the racism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Where
and Sean overhears it drunkenly.
yeah.
And watching it, you kind of hope he's too drunk to remember it because you don't want him to remember
kind of
it.
are, but he obviously he does. But it obviously turns out that it's the whole thing with they're giving Owen Wilson the the ladies from the brothel are giving him a massage, and he's just like, oh, he's not my friend, kind of.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be friends with a Chinaman.
Yeah.
Sort of line, and and I guess you kind of want to give the character the benefit of the doubt here that he doesn't kind of mean this at the time. That I said earlier, that it's almost
like he's saying it for the girl.
Yeah, and it is.
He's saying it to get her off the
But he is also. I think you can give the character the benefit of the doubt and still call him a fucking coward.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think it's more he's a coward than he's a racist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's more right. I mean, it's like that whole.
But he's not a racist.
Yeah.
It's kind of one of those things that sometimes, if we can be a bit cowardly, or we just don't want to confront something at the time.
Yeah.
Which I think we can all be kind of guilty of. That.
Let's put it bluntly for a second. In that scene, where he's thinking with his dick.
Yeah.
That's
he's thinking of his dick in that scene. There's no two ways about that. But sometimes it's kind of that thing where you'll just go along with someone because you don't want the fucking argument at the time. Which I think we, as human beings, I think we've all been guilty of.
Yeah.
We've been kicked off.
They've cut us. We were talking over it. What the hell?
Yeah.
Oh no, we're going. We're going.
Yeah. Okay.
We're live. We're live.
Yeah.
Are we still live?
Yeah, we're back to being live.
We're live. We're live.
Are we live?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Okay. I better not play to any more.
Yeah. No more clips.
Just some in case.
Yeah. So that was quick. Don't know what happened there.
You very briefly cut there, but it looks like we're back. So
yeah,
we were briefly cut.
Yeah.
To be honest, anything we shared was fair use anyway. She'd get the stream back, but
it'd just be an ass pain in the ass.
Just be a pain in the ass because you have to do a part 2 on.
Yeah.
A movie that we're more than halfway through.
Yeah. And like I said, it was literally just a blip. So.
Mm-hmm. So that's they do that, and then we have this scene with Roy saying, not there, and then the line from Roy of, "We're going to give it the old yeehaw."
Yeah.
Escaping.
Yeah.
Which is just fantastic. We're going to wing it and give it the old yeehaw.
And of course, Sean's horse is drunk.
Yeah, the yeehaw? What's a yeehaw? And the horse is drunk, and we have Roy who says a yeehaw. We climb off the balcony, jump down while yelling yeehaw, land on the horse, and ride away. Sounds simple. Especially considering we've seen Sean now in several fights be very, very coordinated.
Yeah.
But he lands on the horse backwards, taps it on the ass, and, "Hey, horsey, where's the head?"
Yeah.
Legends of the Drunken Master callback, anyone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is very, very it's a beautiful moment because that's the moment at which you realize they're both moving towards each other in opposite directions.
Yeah.
Because Chon's trying Western things, but Roy's still sticking with him.
Yeah.
And because like the first half of this movie is very much Chon's story of becoming Western.
Yeah.
But the second half of this movie is Roy's story becoming more Eastern, more honourable. Yeah. And this is kind of the Volta point.
Yeah.
Where we go from it being Chon's story to being Roy's story.
Yeah.
Please don't ever use the word Volta when referring to a movie. I'm not sure it applies. I use it as a literature term.
And
because we find out when they're taken prisoner, this is where shit gets real.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be fair, Roy does try to warn him.
Yeah.
Roy does warn Lo Fang, not the hair.
Yeah.
But you get this moment of Roy has kind of built Chong up in his mind as the kind of this invincible Superman.
Yeah.
And then you see him among his own people and you realize that he's considered mediocre at best.
Yeah. And Lo Fang has, a great line right before he cuts the cue. A slave has no honor.
Yeah. And this is very much Lo Fang's thing. He's constantly telling Chong, you're just a slave. You can't think. He's constantly. And he almost says it with the vindictive pleasure of someone who's broken free of that.
Yeah.
Because that's almost how it comes across, as if he's saying, you're still a slave, but I got away, Yeah.
Like
trying to build his own. He's the hero in his own story.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting point that he, especially in a Western, that he makes that point of he treats the Chinese people like slaves.
Yeah.
And he considers them all the same, be they princess or...
Well, yeah, earlier in the film, he's put the rocks on her shoulder and it's like, now you know how it feels for your sedan carriers.
Yeah. And because he's trying to make her bow to him.
Yeah.
But she won't. Because, even when she's piled under rocks, she doesn't bow to him. She pushes it off and she goes to help the little old lady.
Yeah. And it's not her safety that keeps her there. It's the safety of the immigrants working on the railroad.
Yeah. And she is, in that situation, the ideal monarch. Yeah. She's the monarch who actually cares about her people.
Yeah.
As opposed to the emperor, who we never see.
Yeah. And in fact, I'll say Pepe does have a character arc in that she goes from the restricted, the princess who wants to leave the restricted area to the queen who wants to look out for her people.
Yeah, she does. She makes that jump and she goes from being daddy's little rich girl with a bit of a chip on her shoulder who doesn't like doing her duty, because let's be honest, that's how she starts out, to being, no, this is my duty and my duty is here to my people.
Which is very interesting, seeing how in the beginning of the film, she's shot, aside from the scene in the sedan chair, every time the camera's on her, there's no obstruction. But when Sean, meets her, she's got the hat hiding her face and she's behind the
she hides who she is amongst the people.
The thing is, if I remember right, during that particular dynasty, the custom was the emperor or the imperial person who was giving orders would be hidden from view.
Yeah. So you're not supposed to look on the imperial person.
Yeah,
that's why he immediately does the whole thing, because he's not supposed to look at her.
Yeah,
it's a death sentence to look at the princess.
Yeah, but having her, when she's sitting behind that veil, that's her stepping up into the role of the monarch looking after people, which is very interesting considering the film makes a very interesting statement regarding monarchy later.
Yeah. I think the statement she makes when he's talking to her is very important. But this scene, this entire scene with Lo Fang cutting Chon's hair is all about honor. And it's immediately followed up by the hanging scene.
Yeah.
Again, all about honor.
Which
because
is...
they stand on the gallows and they don't shake and they don't cry and they don't plead for mercy.
And it's also, everyone, the crowd's chanting, hang them, with, back in the day, the hangings were public entertainment.
Yeah. And it's done very much as a public entertainment piece.
Yeah.
And especially after cutting Chon's hair, it's the final humiliation. It's a dishonorable death. It's the death of a criminal.
Yeah.
And he's had everything taken from him, or everything that he thought he was. And the cutting of his hair is it is the moment of no return for him.
Yeah.
Because while he's got his hair, he can still cling on to his old ideas about honor and duty.
Yeah.
But once that's gone, I kind of feel like Chon became a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Lo Fang did him a favor by cutting his hair. Because as he cut his hair, he cut his last, as long as he had his hair, he could still pretend he was on imperial business.
Yeah.
Once his hair was cut and he knew he could never go back. Okay, now what? Now the only thing I am is myself.
Yeah.
And who is that person?
And this is what I mean by, Chon and Lo being foils of each other. Because what Lo took from the West is the greed. And, greed and capitalism. Chon took individuality from from the West, from America.
Yeah. And how to shoot.
Yeah.
I do love the fact that Chon becomes a better shot than Roy, and it was Roy who taught him.
Yeah.
It's never explicitly commented on, but it is there.
Yeah. And so let's see. And we did discuss the goofing around scene, the training montage.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, because that was earlier in the movie. So I think we're coming up on the church scene, and there's a lot I gotta say about the church scene.
But before that, we're coming up on what I like to call Roy's finding religion.
Yeah.
Roy finds religion long before they get to the church. Because Roy stands by the creek holding the noose that should have his neck in it.
Yeah.
And says, just listen to it.
Yeah.
I want to learn the names of the trees. In his own way, Roy has found God in that moment.
Yeah.
Or a version of God. He's learned to appreciate life.
And of course, this is our stereotypical statement of the, untamed beauty of the West.
Yeah. But it is also the Chinese wake up in the morning and do Tai Chi in the landscape. Yeah. Chon has this great respect for the world and everything else, and Roy's now he's tasted death. It's almost like that hanging scene was a metaphorical death for Roy.
Yeah.
Spiritual death and reawakening. But he had to be taken to the brink of death to do it, which is a very interesting, very deep philosophical point to make in a comedy.
Yeah. Yeah. But of course, Chon...
It is very deep for a comedy in a lot of respects. This entire film.
Oh yeah, like the church scene makes a lot of deep statements.
Yeah. And we're not talking about Roy thinking he's Jesus.
No.
Yeah, we'll get there. I'm sure.
So, but Chon leaves. And this, for me, again, I bring up Roy finding God and all this because this, for me, is the St. Peter moment.
Yeah.
Like, Roy has denied Chon, so Chon's leaving.
Yeah.
Roy's denied him once. He's technically, at this point, Roy's denied him twice. But Roy has had his awakening.
Yeah.
And then when he comes later, when Chon's in the site,
in the camp,
it lampshades Peter because he doesn't deny him a third time.
Yeah.
And that's the moment that seals we're in it now for the long run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they come to it as equals in that moment, even though it's Roy saving Chon.
Okay. And so I think we're at the church scene.
No, we're at the scene where Chon finds the princess.
Oh yeah. We kind of skipped ahead and
her.
Yeah. And then he finds the princess, and then he escapes with Roy, and they get to the church scene, and the Chinese fellas arrive at the church scene. And this church, first thing you've got to notice about this church is it's pretty banged up. It's basically a building site.
Yeah,
it's got a a little bit of a homage to spaghetti western.
Yeah, it's
a little bit.
Yeah, probably like an old, Spanish mission.
Yeah, and then Chon appears in monk's robes of all things.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting point that Chon and Roy appears in monk's robes.
Yes.
It's a very interesting visual dynamic going on.
But so here's the thing. So, one of the guards takes out the imperial decree, and Chon,
falls to his knees.
Yeah, falls to his knees and reads it.
But then he's on his own.
Yeah, and then he stands up and says, the sun may rise where I come from, but it sets in the west.
And it's Roy who says, do you want me to translate? And they're all looking at Roy, and Roy says, the princess stays.
Well, no, here's the thing. This scene makes it a statement about monarchy.
Yeah.
So, monarchy rises in the east and dies in the west.
Yeah.
Also, and on top of that,
I get where you're going.
Okay, but here's the thing. While this is going on, Pepe takes the imperial decree
and destroys it
by burning it on votive candles.
It becomes a sacrifice. And that's all she's doing is sacrificing herself for her people repeatedly. She's become the queen of the moment.
It can be seen as a sacrifice. It can also be seen as, Christianity burning away, Chinese imperial power.
An offering on the altar of the West. Yeah.
Yeah.
I would be wary of applying that reading to it.
Yeah.
Because that reading, I think, has the potential, and I say the potential with all affection, because I love your ring.
Yeah.
The potential to strip Pepe of her choice in doing that.
Yeah.
Because she's basically saying with that movement of my rank doesn't matter. What matters here is protecting people. And she's had her eyes opened to the barbarism of for the first time she's seen that there's no difference between what she is in the east and what Lo Fang is in the west.
Yeah.
The people are forced to bow and scrape and obey.
Yeah.
And how dare she? This is the moment where she realizes the part she plays in a hypocritical system.
Yeah.
And decides she's having none of it. So I would be very wary to apply an east-west philosophical debate on that when it's quite...
Yeah, I think we may possibly be reading way too much into this.
Yeah.
My personal opinion.
for me, I do think.
I mean, it's great that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. But I mean, as good as this is, I think possibly there's way too much we're reading into anything that was intended here.
Yeah.
For me, that throwing on all that does is level the playing field for everyone in the room.
Yeah.
The moment she throws that scroll onto the candles, everyone in the room is equal.
Yeah.
There are no imperial princesses, there are no sheriffs, there are no anyone. We're all equals and we're all fighting for what we believe in now.
Yeah, and then the marshal, comes out and says, "Looky here, we're in a Mexican standoff, but we ain't got no Mexicans."
Yeah. And Roy there, son of a bitch with my own guns.
Yeah.
And it just, Yeah.
So, I mean, it's good that you have these two different fights going on in the sense that you've got the big martial arts fight, obviously, between, Lo Fang and Chong Wai, and then obviously the big gunfight in a sense between Roy and Van Cleef, and obviously the fact that we plays in that joke that Roy can't shoot for shit.
Yeah.
But
one thing I do want to comment on, and it's Chong Wan's coming of age as an Imperial Guard happens in the film. Because their fight, he's essentially fighting the Imperial Guard, and then they hear the princess scream, and the guard says to him, "Go save the princess."
Yeah,
there are 4 elite soldiers there, and they all look to Chong because he's been in the West and he understands how to fight in the West, and that's what they've seen, and it's them recognizing that he's the person who's going to save it.
Also, all the gags with the pogo spear.
Oh, so many gags with the pogo spear. So many visual gags. It's just and I do love the use of levels.
Yeah,
it's to me because with the use of levels, did anyone else get Game of Death vibes?
Yeah, slightly.
Yeah.
Little bit, like not in there's the enemy at every level, but more that climbing.
And of course, the end of this battle is actually foreshadowed rather cleverly.
Yeah.
Because Roy says, I get the gold, you marry the princess, and Lo Fang gets hanged.
Yeah. Not quite how it goes, but and the Lo Fang hanging. There's a bit. Did anyone else spot the continuity error here? Lo Fang, you see it as he kicks off the thing. Lo Fang grabs the rope and spins it round his arm 3 times. But then in the exact next shot, he's got the rope around his neck and it's nowhere near his arms. And it cuts.
I didn't pick up on that one, honestly.
No,
enough that I picked up on it.
How many times I've watched this once. How many times have you watched this?
I don't know, because I was a preteen the first time I watched this movie.
Too many times.
This is, those movies, they call them comfort movies on Twitter. Those movies you put on when you're tired, you're upset. You've just come home from a funeral and you need to raise a smile. And you just need something that's familiar and comfortable, and you just want to sit and stare at it, probably not pay attention, but it might make you smile as well. That's the movie for me. This is one of the movies. I will say this, trigger warning for what I'm about to say, but after my mother's funeral, this is one of the movies I watched because I knew it was something that would help me.
I can see that this movie is going to be a good pick me up for someone.
Yeah,
I can see, because it is for as much as we've read into all the stuff, it is a very light-hearted movie.
Yeah,
And to me, it's just familiar. It's that.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, when you're bored and you're watching TV, there's no on, so you flick onto Dave and watch an old episode of Top Gear.
Yeah.
It's that, or you know, whatever you do, whatever TV show you automatically turn on when you're bored. It's that for me.
Yes, you go to film, or you go to a bit of music, whatever. If you're feeling down, you need to pick up the.
But
yeah,
and we, you know, we get the you know, the but meanwhile down below a miracle is happening.
Yeah.
I do know the thing of the brutal fights happening above, and the miracle is happening below in a church when you'd expect it the other way around.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, I love the whole thing because obviously, you know, he's gonna double cross Roy with the whole, hey, let's make it a fair fight, one shot each.
Well,
he's gonna double cross him on that.
This is what I meant as well by Roy is so naive.
Yeah. That he believed that that guy would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yet, what happens? He goes out in those robes, and that Sheriff Van Cleef gets off like, you know, a dozen shots. Roy gets off that one, and he gets it off a perfect shot.
Yeah.
And then you see all the bullet holes in his robes or whatever.
Yeah, don't forget, Van Cleef took 18 shots.
And he suddenly thinks, it's a miracle I can't be killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is just typical Roy, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah. Which obviously kind of plays into what's going to happen afterwards with the
very much plays into the whole Sundance thing.
The Butch and Sundance homage at the ends there.
Yeah.
With a slight change of the outcome, obviously.
Yeah.
Well, is there a change of the well, yeah.
Yeah, there is a change.
There is a very big change in the outcome.
Yeah. But the way it's done is very clever. So, can you hear that whistling?
No.
It literally sounds like I've got a ghost screaming on my balcony.
But
it's the wind. But yeah, so we've got Roy, and Roy does this moment where he's in the robes and he walks and his arms out and he's Roy Invincible, and he's quite clearly positioned in such a way right in front of the altar is quite clearly meant to mirror the crucifix behind it. Yeah. Which is, you know, all sorts of fun.
Yeah.
I'll let the atheists discuss that bit.
Maybe for another stream, that could be. Yeah.
But he quite clearly believes he's blessed or something, which is typical.
Well, and it's interesting because, like, as he's walking, as the guns are from the gang are going off and he's walking towards it, he's not hit by any stray bullets.
No, he's not. And then Sean grabs hold of him and pulls him to one side.
Yeah.
And this is what I meant by the whole Roy goes through a religious experience and a religious growth in this film.
Yeah.
Like, he almost does become a religious figure. He was at his lowest and he's learned and he's grown and he had to die and arguably rise again into something that was more than what he was previously, more than human.
And then there's the part which this is where I was like, oh, nice, Butch and Sundance homage, and then I'm like, wait, the entire movie is a Butch and Sundance homage.
Yeah.
But it's the really obvious homage that made me like reevaluate the entire movie, and like the entire movie is a Butch and Sundance homage.
Yeah, which is almost a good in the sense that, in fact, it's almost a satire of a satire, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because in a lot of ways, Butch and Sundance is
is a satire of the Western.
Satire of the Western, and it's or at least it throughout the entire rules of the Western genre.
Yeah,
Butch and Sundance, completely. It's I think it's one of the best Western films ever made. But
yeah.
Anyways, they go out ready, guns ready to go blazing, go out and blaze of glory. But this time the cavalry, once again the cavalry has arrived, and once again the cavalry is the Sioux.
Is the Sioux, yeah.
Yeah, and I do love this moment of Roy panicking, but then and this is a beautiful thing where Sean says, "No, my wife, my family."
Yeah.
And Roy's response is brothers. So so what's happening there is Roy saying, hang on, if they're Chon's family, Chon is my family. He's my brother, so they're my brother.
Yes and no, because that could also be interpreted as Roy still on his religious, it's a miracle thing. My brothers, so that could be interpreted a couple of ways.
It's that immediate thing of, if you're Chon's family, you're my family.
Yeah.
So whether he's on a religious trip or not, that's what that brings across.
You can interpret that one of two ways, can't you?
Yeah.
Which obviously I think gets us to pretty much towards the end of the movie. Pretty much the end of the movie.
Yeah.
A couple of good little jokes, obviously, that obviously Jackie Chan and the princess.
Yeah.
It's implied that they get together. I know we don't.
It is strongly implied.
And it is implied Roy gets with Chon's wife.
Well, it's more than implied.
Yeah.
Yes, she sticks her tongue.
That's the great.
You talk too much, Roy.
That is the great thing about this is you didn't think she spoke English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only she speaks English with an American accent.
Yeah. And it's very much a case of you talk too much. And she initiates the kiss, and you can see the surprise on his face.
Yeah.
And it's just beautiful.
I'm surprised, but
it looks like they're celebrating Chinese New Year.
Yeah.
To me, it looks like a Chinese New Year celebration.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got one last great joke in the film.
Yeah.
So
now that they're no longer outlaws and they're both lawmen, Roy can't use his name anymore.
Yeah.
So he's going to need to come up with another one.
Yeah.
And he says,
"What's his real name?
What's your real? It's Earp. Wyatt Earp. Earp.
That's a terrible cowboy name.
Earp. Earp's just a terrible name. Full stop, Chong. Just say it. And the beautiful comeback of what? And John Wayne's a great cowboy name.
Yeah, which was kind of a running gag. Is John? John Wayne. Well, it's a running gag in the series that his name is John Wayne.
Yeah.
Or Americanized into John Wayne.
Yeah, John Wayne. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this thing of not going to get half as many girls being lawmen.
Yeah.
And they come full circle. They're on the same hilltop as Roy was on at the start.
Yeah.
Watching Roy's old gang do a robbery using Roy's old moves.
Yeah.
And then remember at the beginning, Chon didn't speak a lot of English. He didn't understand how to greet anyone.
Yeah.
Howdy. No, faster than that, or people will think he's slow in the head. And he says, come on, let's go tell him howdy.
Yeah.
That cheese and that shit-eating grin on Jackie Chan's face.
Yeah.
Is just, it's perfect.
Yeah.
The whole movie is just, it's really.
I think this is the only action movie we've gotten like 2 full hours out of.
Oh,
crazy, yeah.
There's a lot to say about this movie, and I feel like we've said a lot, but there's still a lot more we could have said.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this longer than the actual movie itself.
Yeah.
I could keep going much longer than this.
Yeah.
And even with the 2 sort of 3-minute and 5-minute clip we did, we've still talked a hell of a lot. I have a thesis that I am developing, a theory, a hypothesis that I'm developing.
Yeah.
Having been on Media Musings a few times now. Enough to be a co-host.
Yeah.
I am developing a hypothesis that any given satire of a particular genre will always be a highly rated example of said genre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Happens with Princess Diaries. It's happened with this.
It happened with John Wick.
It happened with John Wick. Arguably, it happened with Die Hard.
Yeah.
It seems to be that the way to make a good genre movie is to satirize the genre.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier, this is almost let's say all the Butch and Sundance references. It's almost a satire of a satire.
Yeah.
Because Butch and Sundance is a satire of the Western genre.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it becomes, I think, and it's quite interesting because just moving on to Shanghai Nights, they come to London.
I haven't watched Shanghai Nights, so.
Come to London, and there's a great set piece where they jump off Big Ben. Like they do the whole bell fight around Big Ben the Bell, and then jump off the clock face. And somehow survive that shit. And they meet Arthur Conan Doyle.
Yeah.
Oh.
And there's a great little joke in there that I'm not going to spoil for you because I know Ring will find it very amusing. But they meet Arthur Conan Doyle and it's very fun.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I can imagine that's a lot of fun with.
Yeah.
I mean, we could do. I Ring it again. Future episode. I think as a very broad brush, we could do an episode on Sherlock Holmes as a whole.
Oh yeah.
That would have to be a very broad brush.
Yeah,
we'd need about 4 hours.
Cover all the books and so to do that in like a 2-hour stream, it'd have to be a very broad strokes.
Yeah.
We'd have to focus, I think, on the characters themselves rather than any particular story.
Yeah.
Either that or take something like Hound of the Baskervilles, which is done in every iteration of, and compare and contrast. That'd be how we'd have to do that. But Shanghai Nights is very good. It's not as good as Shanghai Noon, but only because Shanghai Noon is so good.
You know what? So next Sunday is actually Valentine's Day.
Yes, I'm aware.
And I think I know the perfect romance movie to cover on Media Musings.
Do tell.
Deadpool.
Our first Valentine's Day that we spent together, we went to see Deadpool at the movies.
Yeah, we did a double feature. We did a double feature. We saw Deadpool and then Pride and Prejudice and Zombies.
And we both preferred Deadpool.
I'm pretty sure I took my ex to see Deadpool on Valentine's Day. It may explain why I'm single now.
See, no, it doesn't, because the fact that we went to see Deadpool on Valentine's Day explains why we're married.
Yeah.
So I don't think it was the film that was the problem, Jeff.
Yeah.
So it's
final.
The film was a symptom. That wasn't the cause.
Yeah. Final thoughts on Shanghai Noon.
I first watched this movie like 2 days ago, and I just thoroughly enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. And there was a lot of things you could read into it. And the fact that it was a satire on almost a satire on a satire, the way the West. There's been an awful lot of Western spoofs and some really good ones, but I mean, you look at all the sort of Western comedies, where it be Blazing Saddles or Wild Wild West, whatever it might be, or the awful Lone Ranger thing with Johnny Depp. This was done so well.
Yeah.
It was done very, very well. And also, it is, in a lot of ways, as I said, it's also a movie about the clashing of cultures.
Yeah.
In a big way.
Yeah, I think I can agree with that. I would also say this is a movie, above all else, about found family.
Yeah.
Because this movie, and the ending of this movie in particular, tells you that the treasure is literally the friends you made along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not just about the gold.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful movie, and I've missed it, so I'm really glad to have had the opportunity to rewatch it, because I've not watched it in a lot of years, and I'm so glad it held up. I'm so glad it wasn't one of those films like Gladiator that I watched as a kid and thought fondly of, them, watched it as an adult and went, what the unholy fuck?
Yeah.
Which I did with Gladiator. But
especially in a genre that has a well-earned reputation for aging poorly.
Yeah, and for being incredibly problematic.
Historical epics have that tendency, though.
Yeah.
But the Westerns, a very particularly bad subgenre.
Ring, I do have to suggest that we do a Westerns month, though.
I have, yes. Ring, I will message you because I have a movie idea for that one.
I've already
made by Europeans.
Butch and Sundance. We already have to do.
Yeah,
and I do think we have to do maybe not necessarily one film, but maybe we could look at the spaghetti western as a genre.
Yeah, the Terence Hill, Bud Spencer movies. The Terence Hill, Bud Spencer. Pick any one of those you like. I'd like to see us do a classic one, an all black and white, something like Chantilly Lace or something like that.
Or maybe The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance.
Yeah. I don't particularly want to do Tombstone because Kevin Costner.
Yeah. Kevin Costner's not in Tombstone.
No, I'm sure he is, isn't he? Is it Tombstone?
No. He's Kurt Russell's in Tombstone and Val Kilmer.
Well,
I know you get Kevin Costner does play Wyatt Earp. Tombstone is a brilliant film, by the way.
It is a good film, yeah. But
we're gonna have to do the original Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
Hell yes.
I think we're gonna need 2 months.
Yeah.
What I'm hearing.
Yeah, you want to do something like a real classic Western, like Magnificent Seven or Shane, something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second era of Westerns, which I'd be called like this kind of spaghetti Western era.
Yeah.
The Clint Eastwood Man with No Name kind of thing.
And what we do need to do for something a little bit different is The Salvation, which is a European film. I think it's Danish. I'm assuming it's Danish because it's Mads Mikkelsen.
Yeah. And of course, one of the best modern westerns made, starring Hugh Jackman.
Logan.
Yes.
Very got elements of Shane about that.
Yeah.
Got serious elements of and I would even argue for it is both one of the best westerns and both best superhero movies ever made.
Yeah.
It's just and I've often said to people when people said to me about Logan was a superhero movie, I said you do not have to like superhero movies to like Logan. It is just a beautiful story.
Also, if Logan doesn't make you cry, there is something wrong with you.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're fucked up if Logan does not touch
Logan and there's a dry eye in the room, you're in the wrong room.
If Logan doesn't pull at your heart,
I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about Logan.
Yeah, so it's We have a list. We have a long list. But I do strongly recommend this.
Depends how long Media Musings goes for a show, but you could have a Western month every month for years to come with all the great
we really
films in that particular genre.
Yeah. So Deadpool next week.
Yep.
Then I happen to know. How do you feel about having a little bit of? I'm gonna make a suggestion for a film, and it's a little bit of an in-joke for any ex-Catholics. I'm gonna suggest Willy Wonka. Because the week after next is the start of Lent, and we've all tried to give up chocolate at least once.
So we're talking. We're talking the original.
We're talking. Yeah, we're not talking. Yeah, we're talking the good version, not the
version. Yeah.
And yes, I know people. Before anyone says it, yes, I know the Johnny Depp version is closer to the book, but
that doesn't make it better in this case.
Not make it better.
Yeah, the Johnny Depp version did some things well, but the superior version is the original.
Yeah. I'm only suggesting that because it's a little in joke of giving up chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
know you love your.
Yeah.
Are we gonna have to put orange makeup on for that? Oompa loompa.
Nope. I may try and Noodle, you're good at Photoshop, aren't you?
Reasonably so.
I have an idea for a thumbnail.
Thumbnail here. It's like the three of us as Oompa Loompas.
Nope. I have an even better idea for a thumbnail, but we'll save that till after the broadcast.
Cool. That'll keep everyone guessing and want to come back to see.
So, Shilling, Jeff.
Okay. I haven't got anything necessarily scheduled. Before we jumped in here, I've been talking with Dog, who's in the chat. Maybe you're going to do something with him on my channel at some point. We just need to set up when and how that's going to be. So that's a possible thing. May possibly look at doing another Twitter-related stream. Maybe later this week, if not early next week. I haven't decided, but I do think the next subject of my wacky world of Twitter is going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Oh yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, so I got a good feeling. Possibly Thursday this week. Might have to use Restream for that though, depending on the dates on all that.
So Jeff has a Patreon. Sign up for it so he can afford the pro version of StreamYards and not have to rely on Restream.
To be fair, I think the only person left in this chat is Dog, who's already a patron of mine. So,
we may get rewatchers.
We may do. Sign up to Jeff's Patreon.
So I Marjorie Taylor Greene, I think, will be the next subject, and I have just thought, because don't just want to go after like Christian lunatics. We might have to look at some atheist lunatics at some point. So I'm thinking David Silverman's Twitter as a possible future stream as well. So I've got some ideas. Otherwise than that, hopefully Noodle and I should be back for Asterix next Sunday as well. We had to give it a rest today because Noodles already explained why, but
my hometown is a nightmare. That, to put it mildly. So
but hopefully we should be back with Asterix and Obelix all at sea next week.
And Noodle?
A couple of things. I am running gaming streams. The USB of my gaming streams is that I'm not a gamer, so don't come expecting like it all perfect and me to do everything right first time and things like that. No, that's not the point. The point is for you to point and laugh at me. So come along and enjoy that. I did the first bit of Death Stranding. I'm carrying on with Death Stranding, and that'll be on Monday. So tomorrow at some point, probably later in the evening. I did it at 11 o'clock last week, but wow, that was a killer. So it'll be a bit earlier in the day tomorrow.
Yeah.
When I've worked out a time, I will start tweeting out. So follow me on Twitter if you want to hear more about that. I am at Danger Hisse. I also have another Twitter that you can follow, Discourse Noodle, but please read the card and the bio first. Equally, if you find my fan fiction anywhere, Dead Dove Do Not Eat, heed the tags. I also have Ko-fi and Redbubble, so you can check out my designs on Redbubble. And if you fancy sending me any funds via Ko-fi, I very much appreciate it.
Yeah. Actually, can I just point one thing out before I am almost at 350 subscribers now. I'm 349. So I've gone up one since today. Ring, I believe, has gone up a couple. Ring is only 29 away from the 200 mark. We got to get Ring to 200.
I mean, yeah, we do have to get Ring to 200.
Yeah.
We also need to get Noodle to 100.
Yeah, my subscribers have been rising recently as well, so thank you to all the new people.
Yeah.
Yep. I am at 171. Once I get to 200, embarrassing story stream.
I'm pretty sure you've gained a couple since the last time I looked. So,
well, let's see.
Heading there.
Nope, still direction. 171.
Okay.
So,
I'd say that because it was 169 the last time I looked. I think that's why.
Yeah.
Ring got a little bit of mileage out of that 169 on Twitter, we think.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm one away from 350 for that little milestone, but I'm more. Let's get Noodle to 100 and let's get Ring to 200 right now.
And special thanks to my patrons, Santi the Same and GeoSam. I have a Patreon and a Teespring. Links are in the description below. I can't promise they'll immediately go into production value because what's limiting my production value is the space I'm in.
Yes.
But they will go towards getting me in a better space. And hopefully on Monday I'll be filming my next episode of Dungeons and Divinity, where I'll be talking about the Leviathan and the and for those of you who have watched Junk Shop covering the Book of Job, Elihu the Storm Wizard. And of course, always on Saturday there's secular D&D. The time may change between now and Saturday. I'll put it on my Twitter if it does. And of course, next Sunday on Media Musings, we are doing Deadpool. And of course, still on my Fem Swing-ish, so on my Twitter, I will be still doing daily selfies until it's over.
Well, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
So yeah. I think that's everything, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So taglines.
May all of your stains be large ones.
Take care, be good, and if you can't be good, use your noodle.
And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a selfie stick, so don't choke on it.